Welcome to the Backyard Blitz. I'm Brandon Peebler. We got Ronnie Eastham in the house. You can follow me at Peebler22 on Twitter and follow Ronnie at Ronnie Eastham. Make sure you give us a follow at Twitter on our podcast page, The BY Blitz. And make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we're going live on YouTube. And tell your friends. Tell them that we kind of do this and you like what you hear. So, Ronnie, we're a week post-draft, 2 weeks now. God, yeah, 2 weeks now post-draft. That happened extremely fast.
Wow, yeah, it did.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of talk about, we never get a chance to really just kind of dive into our teams a little bit. And, post-draft is always one of those things. We're a day away from the schedule being released. And I remember us talking about, when the postseason was around, we're like, after the draft, that's when you kind of get like the hope. That's like the ultimate feeling of hope that you have with your team of like, it's going to be a fresh slate and all that. So start off with your Bills. I know that you're really excited. I think the rest of the NFL world is really excited about the Bills this year. How do you feel about them post-draft, and how do you feel that they did during the draft? And do you think that there's any still glaring needs that they have right now?
I think they did a fantastic job in the draft. They answered basically a lot of the position needs that they had. You're always kind of leery of depending on a rookie, of course. So that's Kair Elam. The ceiling for him is CB1. They're saying that he has a talent to match with Tre'Davious White. But again, he's a rookie. So we're going to be depending on that. White came in as a rookie. He did fine. I believe he was, I want to say second or third in Rookie of the Year that year. But I thought the draft was fantastic. They got Dalvin Cook's little brother. I think he's a huge addition. Not necessarily in the running game so much. I mean, he's going to add some explosiveness there as well. But what he brings to the table in the passing game. So I'm excited to see what he does. And of course, you can't talk about the Bills and not talk about Von Miller, right?
Yeah. When it came to the draft, it almost kind of went by the wayside. Like there was that free agency wave that, trying to get these guys, and that was a huge signing by Buffalo because Jerry Hughes, isn't he still a free agent? Or I know that there was rumors of him potentially signing with the Texans, something like that. It's not certain that he's coming back. So it's really good that they got Von Miller, and it seems like he's going to be there a while. I think he'll finish his career as a Buffalo Bill. I think that's a great fit because he, as we saw in the Super Bowl, both Super Bowls that he's played in, he's a game changer, and he can close out games for you. And that's exactly something that Buffalo could use, especially when they are playing in that stacked AFC where it seems like you're just going after premier quarterback after premier quarterback.
Absolutely. I've heard Von Miller referred to it more than once as a closer. That's exactly what he is. When the game was on the line, seconds remaining, and I said this the last time we talked about Von Miller. I honestly believe that if Miller's on that roster this past season, that 13 seconds doesn't happen. There's no way he gives Mahomes any kind of time to do anything. And I think it also changes the way the secondary can play coverage. I think you're going to see a little bit more man because, when your front four can get to the quarterback quicker, that's when you can use man-to-man more often, and you can get up on those wide receivers. And I think we're going to see, obviously we're going to see Tyreek Hill twice this year with him being in Miami. So I think that's going to be huge. I really do. He changes everything on that defense. As far as Jerry Hughes, yes, he there's things floating in my face. He did actually sign with the Texans today. That's the story I got. Anyway, so I was sad to see that. He's been the last remaining really Bills guy from the playoff drought, the 17-year drought. So I was kind of hoping he could stick around, finish his career there, but wasn't in the cards. I don't know if the Bills were just not willing to pay him what he was asking for, or maybe they just couldn't give him what the Texans were offering. I don't know the story behind it, but that was a little disappointing. I was hoping he'd stick around.
Yeah, those situations are always tough because like as a player, as a fan, you know that you're close. Ronnie, you know that your Bills are close. And probably the closest that they've been in their team's history, right? Like even going back to the 90s, like they had a good team, but it seems like, man, they are a front runner in the AFC in everybody's minds. Josh Allen has really turned the corner. And then you have a guy that has been there for a while, and he's been there through the tough times. And you would like to see him be able to potentially hold up that Lombardi, kind of get over that hump. And then he goes and signs with a team that's probably the farthest away, other than the Jaguars, as far as getting to that point. So I know that it's a business, and I know that they have to think about some things other than those. But I totally get it. Going back to Von Miller and your point as far as how they're able to play differently when you have a pass rush. Football is the ultimate team game. We know that. And you can't have, like, you don't have a good quarterback without good receivers. You don't have good receivers without a good quarterback, and then a good line, and so on and so forth. And on defense, the way that plays out is usually have a really good secondary when you have a pretty dang good pass rush, because the quarterback can't sit back there for 4, 5, 6 seconds, scramble around, because that's a long time to cover somebody. But when you're playing corner and you have the type of corners that you guys do, even some of the younger guys that you guys picked up, your safeties, when they know that that ball's got to come out in 3 seconds, they can play it a little bit differently. They can play it a little bit aggressively, and you don't have to risk putting more guys in the pass rush, adding to that, in terms of a blitz. If you can get there with 4, you can put 8, you can put guys back in coverage, 7 guys back in coverage.
Yeah.
And that makes it a lot easier on those guys than taking a guy from coverage and then putting him in the rush. Now all of a sudden you got 6 or 5 guys covering, and then it's, you're in blitz with only 1 guy over the top, and then that's where big plays happen. So I think that you're going to be able to see that the way that they addressed the corner position with the kid out of Florida, Elam, the way that they added to their pass rush. I think they did a lot of complementary things. There wasn't necessarily, Von Miller is a big name, but he kind of went late in free agency, right? They already have their big names. They got the Josh Allen. They got their Stephon Diggs. I love that they added James Cook, because that is a really complimentary piece that they needed. So I'm excited about your Bills. And I'm hoping that we can meet in that ultimate game for sure.
I hope this is the one. You said a while ago, this is the closest that they've been probably ever. It's debatable, obviously, with those 90s teams. But to your point, though, it was almost like back then it was kind of reverse what it is now.
Right.
The
NFC
with the powerhouses, you had the Randall Cunninghams and the Troy Aikmans and the Steve Youngs and all of those guys in the NFC. And then over in the AFC, it was, Marino and Kelly. Until Montana came over for a couple of years.
Fouts was in there for a little while, but he was kind of later in his career.
Yeah.
I believe.
So yeah, I mean, man, it's for 17 years of the drought, right? Every single signing in the back of your mind, you're like, maybe that's the guy. Maybe that's okay. Yeah, I know he hasn't had a good career, and we just spent an exorbitant amount of money for, a third string guy. But for whatever reason, coming to Buffalo, he's going to be a superstar. That's the way fans think, right? You bring in everybody, all these players, and you're like, oh, he's going to turn his career around. He's going to help get us over the hump, and it's crazy the level of hope every single fan has of every single team. I'm sure there's people out there with Houston thinking, oh man, Davis Mills, we saw what Josh Allen did. Davis Mills is going to do the same thing. He's going to take that leap. Brandon Cook's going to have 120 receptions for 1,500 yards. I mean,
this is the time. This is the time. This is the time of year. You got Jets fans that are after what they did in the draft that are, they're starting to talk. I heard a Super Bowl thing and I said, hold on, let's get the playoffs first. Let's get above 500 first before we start saying any of those things. But there's always a team that comes out of nowhere. Yeah, there's a team that comes out of nowhere every single year that you're like, they were 4-12 last year. Now they're 12-4 or 12-5, now with an extra game. But absolutely.
I think, I was going to say, we're going to get to the Jets. We'll talk a little bit about them when we get to these some of these quarterbacks. The one that's driving me crazy right now is all the Tua talk. Like those Dolphins fans, they are, Let me tell you.
I wish oh man, I want to bring up the video because the Dolphins media team did not do Tua any favors in the most recent video. Let's see if I can pull it up here. But basically what happened, so we know that Tyreek Hill
I
went
think I
over
know
to
the
the
video.
Dolphins. Went over to the Dolphins. Oh, I'm gonna bring this up right here. This is embarrassing. It's really bad. All right, here we go. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So if you guys can see this here. All right. This is.
Yep, that's the one.
I mean, if you watch this here, he has to almost come to a dead stop. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll watch this game. I mean, he throws it. They slow-mo it, making it look like, oh my God, this is Tyreek Hill's almost at a dead stop. He's almost at a dead stop. And
I saw the same video with the exact same thing. I was like, wow, okay, yeah.
They did him no favors. Now, there's a lot of different things that could have happened. Maybe that was their first ever throw in minicamp. They're just warming up. Tyreek's not running as fast as he can right there. But the perception
Well, if
going
he was,
in,
then it would have been underthrown even worse.
Oh God. But the perception that we all had, that we all talked about when Tyreek Hill went over to the Dolphins, is that Tua is not going to be able to get him the ball. He doesn't have the arm that Mahomes had. And you want to know what? There's not a lot of human beings on planet Earth that do. Okay. Yeah. Tua definitely doesn't. That was even one of his remarks coming out of college, was that he didn't have the arm strength for the NFL. Now you pair him with like one of the fastest humans on that plays the sport of football, who is a deep threat. That's what he is. He extends the field, right? And first of all, the PR department somebody needs to get fired. Whoever decided to do that, because it's just not right. I mean, this has been Twitter ablaze the last couple days.
Wobbly too.
Oh, it's wobbly. They slow motion on it. It doesn't even look like it's that far, for the love of God.
It doesn't.
And he still has to come to a dead stop.
That could be deceiving, but yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, man.
I will say this about the Dolphins, though. I do think they will be number 2 in the division. I do think they have a lot of good pieces around Tua, and this really is kind of his year. This is year 3. And for me, when I'm looking at players, year 3 is the year I'm looking to. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Dolphins this year. Like I said, I do think they're going to be the best competition for Buffalo, but I don't think it's going to be close.
Absolutely. Well, I got to talk a little bit about my squad here. Okay, you got to talk about the Buffalo Bills for a minute. I'm excited about what the 49ers did. Again, they had a draft that's different. Like both of our teams, we're used to, at least in the last couple of years, kind of trying to build up, getting some of those big name guys. And this year, both of our teams were really kind of supplementing some spots, just kind of filling some needs. I'll tell you what, I love the pick in the second round. Was the first pick that they had. What didn't come until 61, the second round, Drake Jackson. First of all, that guy was going to be a top 5 pass rusher his freshman year in college. The coaches at USC really screwed him up. They had all sorts of different schemes. They had coaching movements. He went between 265 to like 285, and then he had to go back down. Played him at a stand-up outside linebacker. Played him in a down 4-3 defensive end. So he was all over the place, and you didn't really get to see. I think his freshman year was probably his best. So I'm excited to pair him with Coach Chris Kusarik there at the 49ers, because he really gets everything out of the pass rushers there. I mean, you see guys like Arden Key come in and start putting up career-type numbers. Carrie Hyder is another guy that came in. And so I'm excited with this young guy. They'll get him to the right weight. I'm interested in Tyron Davis Price that they picked up in the 3rd round, more of a downhill guy. Now you can see the way that they're drafting. It's more for Trey Lance. It's not for the Jimmy Garoppolo type of style where it's outside zone. This is more downhill type of running. They did it last year with Trey Sermon. They're doing it again with Tyron Davis Price. I think Trey Sermon has a breakout type of year this year, paired with Elijah Mitchell and having this basically 3-headed monster. I'm excited for that. But the one I'm most excited about is Danny Gray. This guy's a 4.3 guy out of SMU. He's picked 105, but basically this is a receiver that the Niners just don't draft. They don't draft speed guys, really. So you can tell that there is a change in philosophy and how they're going to go back about their game plan, what they feel like they have with Trey Lance, that he'll be able to get him the ball deep down the field, unlike maybe Tua and Tyreek Hill there. So I'm excited about that. But I want to talk about some quarterbacks. We talked about, you mentioned third year is the one that you're starting to look at. I want to talk about these quarterbacks that just got drafted. Who's in the best situation here? So I put a little something together, and Ronnie, I want to see what you think about it. I got Kenny Pickett as the guy that's in the best overall situation in 2022. I think he has an opportunity to maybe win the job. I mean, there's an argument there that your boy Mitch Trubisky, I think he's probably the favorite to land that starting job, right now. And then you have Mason Rudolph, who, despite getting hit in the head with helmets and all that stuff, he's had an opportunity, and obviously he hasn't won over anybody, right? He's had his opportunity out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I really think this is going to come down to, you have a young kid that basically was maybe 100 feet away, the whole, in and out of their practice facility at University of Pittsburgh. He knows the area. He probably knows some of the players. Kenny Pickett's going to step in. The big thing about a young quarterback, Ronnie, and I think you'll agree with this, is they got a pretty dang good defense there in Pittsburgh. And even when Big Ben stepped in, they had a good defense, and that allowed him, if they made a mistake, the defense could bail him out. What do you think about Kenny Pickett being my number one there?
I'm on board. I agree with that. I think it's you can't really make an argument otherwise, honestly. None of these other guys, they don't have the receiving core that the Steelers have outside of, I guess, really outside of maybe Atlanta. They all have pretty good running backs in the backfield. But the receiving core, that's a big thing. The Carolina's defense is pretty good. But when you're talking about just skill position players that surrounding a quarterback, Kenny Pickett has definitely got a leg up there. The offensive line for the Steelers last year was a little suspect, so we'll see if that's an improved this year, and if it is, I mean, I've said it here, and I've said it off air. I've been saying it since Mitch Trubisky signed with the Steelers. He's going to be the starting quarterback, and if Kenny Pickett beats him out, hey, outstanding, good job. I'm wrong, and I'm fine with that. It wouldn't be the first time, but
it's Trubisky's job. I think it's Trubisky's job to lose for sure.
I think so too. I mean, you're talking about a guy who has been in the league 4 years now. This will be his fifth, I believe.
Yeah.
With Trubisky, he spent some time with that Bills coaching staff. We'll see if that helped him in his development the way it helped with Allen. There were some other things that Allen was doing off the field, away from the stadium as well, that was helping him as far as going to work with Palmer. I don't know if Trubisky did that or not. I haven't heard, but that's obviously a big thing. We'll see. I do like where Pickett's at, and I do think he has the best chance of any of these guys to start. Well, let me back that up. I think by default, some of these other guys may have a better opportunity to start. To be successful, though, Kenny Pickett's easily the answer there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot, and it starts with coaching. Mike Tomlin's been there for a long time. I know that he's defensive minded, but stability is a huge thing on a young quarterback. I mean, I can remember Alex Smith had 7 offensive coordinators in his first 7 years. And that's almost like learning 7 different languages. And that is difficult, So especially when you talk about year 3, we're talking year 3 in the system, right? Not necessarily. So Trubisky, I think he's going to have a really good opportunity, and he can help kind of teach Kenny Pickett. I don't know if he has the Ryan Tannehill mentality. I can't imagine he does, because Mitch seems like a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see how that situation plays out. But I got him at number 1. Now, despite what Ryan Tannehill, his no mentoring but wants to say, I do like Malik Willis, that situation. Coach Vrabel, he's been in the league. He knows what it takes to win in the NFL. They do have a good defense. They will have a young receiving core, which Malik Willis will be able to kind of grow up with, if you will. And what's really great for a young quarterback is a badass running game. And they got King
Yeah.
Henry back there. So I think that's something that's going to really, really help him. I like that situation. When you are a young quarterback going into a winning type of situation where it's not on you to like win the game, you have all the sorts of pieces around. And I think that's a great transition for him. Now, I have him second on the list. It would, if Ryan Tannehill would have said something like, "I'm going to do everything I can to help this young man," you could make an argument for number one. You could make an argument. I still think Kenny's at the top spot there, but you could make a better argument. But the fact that he's not, and there's already sort of some controversy there, that kind of knocks him down a little bit. But he's definitely, when you look at the Panthers, well, they're not really in a winning situation. The Commanders, I got Carson Wentz there, and the Falcons have kind of blown everything up, and they're kind of almost starting it anew. So Malik Willis is almost there because of default. Now, Matt Corral and the Panthers, that situation is going to be nuts. He might have an opportunity to start potentially if he comes in there in camp, right? And depending on what happens with the Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Sam Darnold situation, he has an opportunity to go in there and win the job. There's I know that Matt Rule has said, yeah, well, Sam Darnold's going to be our starter. And he kind of backed that up like 10 minutes later, like same press conference. So that's nobody's job. It's going to be whoever wins it. So, but I like the defense, like you mentioned. And then when you got CMC back there, that always is going to help to have a weapon. Now, Sam Howell, he might have an opportunity too, because Carson Wentz, he plays really good sometimes and he plays really bad sometimes. And I just don't know what that situation is going to be. I imagine if they turn the keys to Sam Howell, it's not going to be a good situation. They're going to be losing. They might have some guys hurt, and it's almost going to be like, hey, well, let's just see what you got type of thing. And then, of course, Desmond Ritter, I'm the highest on him out of all these prospects, but I think it's the worst situation. They are clearly in a rebuild. They got a lot of young talent there, but I don't know what's going to go on the O-line. I couldn't name your running back because Mike Davis just got released. So it's going to be
the rookie.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so.
The name escapes me, but I do remember him. He was drafted too. Oh my gosh, it's the BYU kid, Tyler Algier. Yeah. And of course they did re-sign Patterson too, but he's kind of your gadget guy. So,
right.
The Falcons do have a couple of pieces in place as far as the offensive side.
Kyle
of the ball
Pitts,
goes.
right? And they got a top receiver in the draft. So
so I think there's a future there. I think they might be heading in the right direction, and it's a kind of a perfect, really for Ritter. He can just kind of sit on the bench, let Marcus Mariota take the beating week in and week out, and then year two maybe he can step in, unless Mariota goes out and kills it, which who knows. But as far as that aspect goes, I think he's in a good spot. All five of these guys, I think if I had to pick one right now that starts week one, I would probably go with Corral.
It's a good it's a good possibility. You could almost make an argument for Kenny Pickett there. I think it's probably close between those two, but yeah, I think that one's more wide open with the Panthers than it is with any other situation. I will say Desmond Ritter getting to learn from Marcus Mariota, because I feel like they do have similar type of skill sets with their legs. I think that will benefit him. And I thought about putting him up a little bit higher because I'm pretty sure Mariota is going to help him out and not say I'm not here to mentor him and all those things. I know I put a lot of stock in that because it's just a team. I have a team mentality, right? I think you do too. And so when we hear that, it's just such a thorn in my side. I just hate it.
I think you could flip 4 and 5 either direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can too. Only reason I put the Commanders up higher is they play in a weak NFC East. Sorry, Johan, but it is like the Cowboys. I'm not sold on them. I'm more sold on the Eagles, quite frankly, because they got some more pieces than I am the Cowboys. The Commanders, just because of who's at quarterback, Carson Wentz. I don't know what I'm going to get from that guy. He could go down for all I know, and you could have Sam Howell that steps in there, but they have a good defense. They have a lot of other pieces there. So just because of that, I put them ahead of the Falcons because, the Falcons are going to have to play the Buccaneers twice. That's going to be tough. The Saints twice That's going to be tough. So,
Do you think Hal has a chance to beat out Wentz though? Like outright beat him, not because of injury or anything like that though.
no, I
Yeah, I
don't.
agree.
I don't. I think
We dog on Wentz a lot, but I think he's better than a rookie,
he
third round,
is.
fourth round, whatever draft pick he was. So yeah,
And I'll be honest, I like Carson Wentz.
I
I
do
do.
too.
I like him, and I feel like ever since he tore his ACL, I think it was like week 14, and he was having an MVP type of year.
Yeah,
Like there's that talent is there. And he had an opportunity with the Colts, and I think maybe he just didn't fit in that system enough, but he still played really well. He didn't turn over the ball a lot. It just was in like the worst time possible that you throw your like 6th interception of the year,
I think
against Jacksonville. So
I think he's still in Indianapolis right now if they'd have made the playoffs.
I
I
do
think
too.
those
I
last
think
two
that
games
was,
sealed the deal.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I felt like we talked about this. If the Colts got in the playoffs last year, they were going to be a tough team to beat. And that
Yeah.
is with Carson Wentz,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think Sam Howell has a chance at beating him out, but we'll see. But I'm excited about these next guys because this is the class from last year. Okay. This is the class from last year that we were all interested in. Who's the quarterback that is in the best situation in 22? Now, I put Trey Lance at 1, not because I'm a homer, okay? But the 49ers have a damn good team around him. They have a really good play caller in Kyle Shanahan. They got a running game that can do a lot of things. They got George Kittle, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk on offense, and they have a really good defense. I feel, and their culture is one that is really good, even with Jimmy Garoppolo there, and that still kind of hanging above them. He mentored the hell out of Trey Lance. He was showing him all the stuff, right? So I think that's a great situation. Now, Zach Wilson, last year, probably in the 4th range. And I would say Justin Fields and Mac Jones were up a little bit higher. But Zach Wilson, the way that the Jets have kind of pieced together some weapons for him, I'm really excited about. And I want to get your take on this, Ronnie, because I am pretty excited about Zach Wilson. He put on some more weight. Looks like he's coming home from college. He's been hitting the iron, put on about 15 pounds. So like you said, he's still probably $185. But what do you think about Wilson there at 2?
The first two, you and I are on the same page. I agree. And it's not that the 49ers really they didn't bring in any big names. They didn't really have any major upgrades across the board outside of maybe Travarius Ward, which I think you can call him maybe an upgrade at the corner position.
Yeah.
But it's the same pieces that they had on offense. But those pieces got them to an NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
None of these other 5 teams can say that. Well, 6 if you throw in Davis Mills. None of them can say that. So I think you're absolutely right. They have a winning roster right now, and that's already proven. It's not like the Jets where they're depending on a couple of rookies, or even the Jaguars who are spending their entire bank account on players who, quite frequently,
on Christian Kirk.
Unproven.
You can say it, Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
They spent a whole lot of money on Christian Kirk for no reason.
But
okay,
I will say, I actually have Trevor Lawrence number 3.
Okay,
because they did some work on the offensive line, bringing Brandon Scherf over. That's a significant improvement. They drafted Luke Fortner out of the Kentucky. Started 36 games. I believe he had 23 starts at guard, 13 at center. So he's got some versatility there. So I think they did him some favors in that regard. And we talking trash about Christian Kirk. He's still a good receiver. The issue with him is the amount of money they paid him to be a wide receiver 1, which he's not. I get that.
Right.
But they did bring in.
Well, he'll have an opportunity to prove it, I guess. At the very
absolutely.
least, he'll have an opportunity to prove it, right?
They did bring in Evan Ingram, who's a pretty good tight end. Zay Jones, who had we'll call it a breakout year with Oakland last year, or not Oakland, sorry, Las Vegas.
Oh, I know. Old habits die hard, right?
Yeah.
Old habits die hard.
So I do think they at least tried to bring in some pieces. There's some of these other teams, like poor Davis Mills. They didn't do jack for him. They
re-signed Brandon Cooks is what they did. They re-signed Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. I mean, they have a second-year wide receiver, Nico Collins, who we'll see what he does. I actually looked him up. He had 60 targets last year as a rookie. He only caught 33 passes of those, though. So that's a little concerning. But we'll see. That they didn't do anything for him though.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe the defense is better, but
I mean, that's a good argument. I mean, that's a good argument that you put there for Trevor Lawrence. For me, I mean, I guess you can say that it's an addition by subtraction, and that's Urban Meyer being gone. I think I
that's
mean,
huge.
so for me, I really almost feel like Trevor Lawrence is going to have to relearn everything again, because he almost learned what not to do in the NFL, and I just can't. I've heard so many things from players that were. By the way, Jordan, is it Jordan Lambeau or Justin
Uh,
Lambeau?
the
The
punter,
kicker, he's filing a lawsuit on
yeah,
Urban Meyer for him getting kicked, by the way. So that just shows you how toxic that was. So I think for
yeah,
him, it's almost going to be like a breath of fresh air to kind of have a Doug Peterson there to kind of show him how to do stuff. His situation isn't bad, by the way. None of these, some of those on the other list are way worse than
yeah.
Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars. I just think as far as pieces around and the coaches, right? I like Doug Peterson, but I like Justin Fields. I don't know how much they did around him, but I'm a huge fan of Justin Fields. There are some times that he showed some absolute star power last year. But then again, there were times where he went like 4 and 14 completion
Yeah.
percentage. So
Oh, his
that does
first
worry
start,
me. Yeah,
whew, that was
rough,
terrible. Yeah.
rough.
But the offensive line didn't do any favors either in that one.
No.
I don't remember how many times he got sacked, but it was a lot. Um, so with the Chicago Bears, they have, of course, Darnell Mooney, who really hasn't broke out yet. I think he could this year, especially with if Fields can take that next step. But they brought in Byron Pringle, and I gotta look over here at my screen to pronounce this. Equinemius St. Brown.
Equinemius St. Brown is Notre Dame guy.
Yeah, from Green Bay. He caught
Yep.
only 59% of his targets though last year. And if you're only catching 59% of passes from Aaron Rodgers, those are accurate passes.
Yeah.
I have some concerns there. Byron
Yeah.
Pringle, I think, is more of a product of the team he had around him in Kansas City. So I don't feel like they really did any favors for
Well, and
Justin Fields as
they
far as
subtracted a guy too in Allen Robinson. You
yeah,
know, he's no longer there. So that is going to
and he was their
be,
best receiver.
yeah. For Justin, when I was putting up there, I mean, you make a great argument for Trevor, and you can almost think about swapping those guys, but that one might be addition by subtraction. And Matt Nagy, I don't know, he did not put Justin Fields, I'm sorry, Justin Fields in a position of strength for him at all. Like, he put him in spread formation, 5 wide receivers, drop back and try to make an accurate throw while you're a rookie quarterback and they're sending guys in your face. Like, that's
Let's
just
just
not
remember.
oh man.
Let's remember too. That's the same coach that was coaching Trubisky.
Trubisky.
And listen to what you're saying right now. So I'm just saying.
No, I get it. No, I absolutely get it. I know that Nagy, and maybe to his credit, he had a winning record there in Chicago under his tenure. So I understand that. But I like Justin Fields and the Bears. Trevor Lawrence, they could be up and coming, but it's still the Jaguars for me. They're still the Jaguars until they prove otherwise. And especially with the younger guy, I want to see what he starts to do. And Mac Jones is kind of at a safe spot in number 4. Reason he's at number 4, I don't think the Patriots got better this offseason. I really, really don't. I think they lost more guys than they brought in. Quite frankly, they brought in some more younger guys in the draft. Kind of a head scratcher there with Colt Strange in the first round. Their wide receivers, I know Kendrick Bourne and then N'Keal Harry, he's probably going to be gone. So it's like, I'm trying to think of who the other guy is.
Jacoby Myers.
Jacoby Myers is like their number 1 guy.
He's their number 1. So they brought in 3 receivers from free agency with our favorite guy, Devontae Parker, who cannot stay healthy to save his life.
No.
I'm sorry. They brought in 2 wide receivers for agency. Yeah,
but he's steady.
If he has a good quarterback and he can stay healthy, I think he can be a productive wide receiver. They also brought in or drafted the speedster 4.28 Taekwon.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a rookie wide receiver. There's not too many Jamar Chases or Justin Jeffersons in this league. So I'm with you, though. They didn't really do much of anything. It's largely the same team. I don't see Ty Montgomery moving the needle either any direction. Yeah, he brings some versatility, but they kind of already have that in James White, who plays
Yeah.
that running back / wide receiver role. So yeah, I'm with you. But I did have Mac Jones actually 3, only because it's not a terrible roster to begin with.
Yeah, and you got Bill Belichick there,
Yeah,
and like I said, this is compared to the last list. This is almost like 1A, 1B, or I'd say 1 and then 2A, 2B, and then
yeah.
3A, 3B. Like these situations, almost all of them are better than like the bottom 3 in that last
Yeah.
list.
I do have to
Absolutely.
ask you this, because I was
Yeah.
thinking about this earlier while I was kind of going through the second-year quarterbacks, and I got to Mac Jones, and I'm thinking, okay, I mean, it's Bill Belichick, it's the Patriots. I mean, right? At what point do we stop saying it's the Patriots? Of course they're going to be fine, because they haven't been fine the last 2 years.
No.
Since Brady left, they haven't been fine.
No.
So at what point do we start to say, you know what? Maybe this team's really not that good anymore. Maybe the Patriots way is no longer the way.
I think it's this year. I think this year we really start to see it. I think last year they spent a lot in free agency to try to plug up. I guess the ship has holes in it, so they're putting those
Yeah.
those don't
Shoving it
leak
with dollar
patches on
bills.
there. Yeah, trying to patch those up with there, and they did a lot on defense because that's what Bill Belichick knows. My biggest issue, and the reason I had him at 4 and not 3, who's the offensive coordinator right now for the Patriots? Because Bill hasn't named one. Josh McDaniels is gone, right? So he's no longer there. And I think that in itself drops him down. Forget the team around him right now.
That's a good point.
He's going to
Yeah.
have a different guy that's calling plays. Is Bill Belichick going to call plays?
I've heard he is, actually.
So Bill Belichick, and great coach, defensive prowess coach. You mean to tell me that he is going to call offensive plays for Mac Jones for the first time ever? If that shows any sort of desperation of what might be going on there, to me that shows that. Like they didn't bring in a guy. There's not another guy that Bill trusts. He's going to call plays on his own. That concerns me if that's in fact true. And I know that they keep everything tight knit, and they don't like to talk and competitive advantage or whatever. But I think that for a young quarterback, that's a tough situation. That's a tough situation.
That is a really good point. And I have to question too, because they've known that McDaniel's going to leave at some point.
Right.
And it doesn't feel like or seem like they really groomed anybody in-house to be prepared to take that spot. I've heard everything from Belichick will call plays to it'll be a 3-way co-offensive situation, which is just mind-boggling to think how in the world. Like Mac Jones is gonna have 3 voices in his head. Like who do I listen to? Well, wait, what you want me to do? What? That's a really good point. Okay, I'll knock him down.
It's just gonna be tough. And I mean, I gotta share this here because this is just too funny. You mean to tell me that you're gonna have this fella right here? Is he gonna call plays? The guy that had his tongue out, that was nuts.
You know who
watching
that
him
is,
on
right?
the sideline. That's his son. Yeah,
That's
it's his
boy.
Steve Belichick. Yeah.
When they zoom in on him on the sidelines, it's like, please turn the camera away. He's got the
turn it away.
Yeah.
Turn it away. Like, holy cow.
Yeah.
But there's one thing, okay, and not a lot of times am I gonna toot my quarterback's horn, but I've been hearing a lot of things about Trey Lance. There's a lot of things that have been kind of, there was a report out that came today, and it's so crazy how things get spun. This came from a Chris Sims podcast where he goes, are the 49ers scared to put Trey Lance in there? Of course they are. And then it gets spun to the 49ers don't trust Trey Lance. Well, let me show you something, because I know that, our listeners, there's been a couple of you that have kind of mentioned that. I always like to listen to what the players say. The players are the ones that kind of went in there. And I kind of learned that when Randy Moss came into the league and I was a really young kid watching football. and I watched John Randall and him talk about, like, he goes, I used to watch, like, see how he's doing, but I would talk to the defenders going against him. The first thing that he said is, glad I'm not going against him. He's like, that's all I need to know about Randy Moss. Well, some of the 49er players have said some stuff about Trey Lance. I'm just going to read some of these things. And these are all pro guys. Fred Warner, going against that kid every single day in practice for sure made me a better player. I think all the DBs, everybody else on the defensive side would say that. George Kittle. And you're going to like this one, Ronnie. And this is part of the reason I wanted to bring this up. He reminds me the most of Josh Allen. He's got a cannon of an arm, and I think he has one of the highest ceilings that I've ever seen. This one from Trent Williams, really, Trent Williams has been around the league for a while. He's an all-pro tackle. He's seen quarterbacks. He knows what it looks like. You see him throw the ball, and you see him run the ball, and you know that that's a generational talent. So I don't want to get too high on the Trey Lance train because I still got to see it myself. I got to see his first ever start this last year in Arizona. He looks the part. The ball jumps out of his hand. He's in a great situation with the 49ers. So just remember this. If he starts doing really well, I have his back right now. Haven't quite bought his jersey yet because my wife won't let me yet. I've had some bad luck with jerseys, by the way. Oh my God. So I almost don't want to jinx him either, but I'm really excited about Trey Lance.
I'm on board with you with Lance, but at the same time, yeah, really, really small sample size from last season.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll definitely need to see what he can do as a full-time starter. I like Johan's comment here.
He always has to get this in there. He always has to get in the Jimmy G thing all the time. And by the way, Johan really loves Carson Wentz.
Well, that's all you need to know.
He always has to say something about the Jimmy G. Always. Every single time I talk to Johan, he has a comment about Jimmy G. Jimmy G's a winner. Jimmy G does a lot of things. He's a really good leader. But I will tell you what, and this is the thing that I want everybody to think about. Kyle Shanahan squeezed the most out of Jimmy G. He did the same thing with CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins and had them win important games. What do you guys think he's going to do with a talent like Trey Lance? Okay, that's all I'm going to say. That's it. I'm done. Ronnie, you put together.
You're having the same battle
thing
that I had for the first 2 years with Josh Allen.
Same.
Oh yeah. Like everyone's like, oh, he can't play. He's a bust. Blah blah blah. I can't believe they drafted him in the first round. And like, go watch his games. Yes, there are rookie mistakes, of course, but watch the games and you can see the talent. You can see the ceiling. Yeah. You
can absolutely see it. And there are some things, and I've watched football my entire life, and you just know when you see certain things, right? And kind of to your point, I know that you've watched football for a really, really long time. So when you see those things, it kind of, I wasn't going to say it, Ronnie, but I mean, you went there, not I. So, and that's recorded. I'm excited about that. But there's our Twitter debate of the week that came up, and you posted this, and I got to bring this up because it sparked a good conversation between you and I. And then you had a lot of other people that were kind of chiming in on this. And this is more kind of around fantasy football. By no means is Ronnie saying, hey, these are the top receivers in the game, although that list kind of looks like it. You know,
you can make an argument.
You can make an argument, but for fantasy football, this is almost kind of goes into the situation that they're in, the quarterbacks that they have going with them, the amount of targets that they're going to see, the system that they're in, etc. So I want you to have an opportunity to kind of talk to your list before I have one big gripe about it. You already know what it is.
Yeah.
You already know what it is, but I'm going to let you go ahead and talk on this one.
Really, this top five, I feel like is going to be the most consistent wide receivers you're going to have. I mean, we already know Cooper Kupp did a season ago, and you can't extrapolate one season into the next. And we know about fantasy football. It doesn't work that way. However, you're playing with probabilities. The probabilities are Cooper Kupp is still going to be his number one guy.
Yeah.
Probability is they're still going to breakfast every morning. We know that's happening. So, and I've joked a few times about some of these other guys maybe they should go have breakfast with their quarterbacks after what those two did last year. But
it's important. I will tell you that stuff is really important.
It is.
The hanging out, just the the mind mouthing, right? Like, you know what they're going to do before they do it. Like, you just know there's no words that need to be, it's just a look, and you know
Yeah.
the other guys got it. And
Well,
that's
it's
what
just
Cooper
like
Kupp and Stafford had last year, for
exactly.
sure.
Allen did the same thing 2 years ago when Diggs got traded. Almost immediately, he got together with Diggs in Florida, brought over the other receivers and offensive skill guys, and said, "Let's start. Let's get it going." And this, early summer when they were doing that. So it is a big thing. It is huge. And then the rest of them, of course, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devonte Adams. I think he's going to be a target machine. I feel like he was the guy in Green Bay, right?
Devontae?
Yeah. Everybody knew that he was going to get the ball. Now you've got a guy named Darren Waller to take some of that pressure off of you.
Hunter Renfrow.
And Renfrow, I think that's going to maybe not as many targets as he's getting in Green Bay, but I think he's going to make some bigger plays. I think he's going to be huge in the red zone. And make some plays there. And then, of course, Stephon Diggs, that's my boy. I can't have a top 5 anything without him there. No, in all seriousness, though,
I will say he produces like crazy.
If you look at what the Bills did last year down the stretch,
it
was almost like early part of the season. They were trying to figure out the offensive line. They were trying to figure out their identity. There was all this. There's rumblings about we need to start, run the ball more. We need to do this with our ground game. We need to improve, blah, blah, blah. At some point, it was almost like, and I don't know if this was Coach McDermott. I don't know if this was Daboll, whatever was going on, but it's almost like the restraints were removed and Daboll had free reign to do what he wanted. And then all of a sudden that offense took off. Now you add a guy like James Cook in there. Dawson Knox is a year older now after his breakout season last year. Good luck covering anybody on this offense. And
you didn't mention your boy Gabriel Davis.
I'm getting there, yeah.
Because that guy is on my radar, dude, after that game in Kansas City. Wow.
The only problem I have, it's not really a problem, I guess, but my worry, I suppose. So his rookie year, he was great. I think he actually led the team in touchdown receptions. Last year, he was up there in touchdown receptions. His playoff game, phenomenal. Like, we've never seen a performance like that, record-breaking. But as a true every week number 2 guy, he hasn't done that yet. Because for whatever reason, it was either it's Cole Beasley or Emmanuel Sanders or whoever it was. Now he is the number 2 in that offense.
Yeah, those guys are out of the way, not necessarily like they were there last year, and you knew that they had to get not their targets, but their plays in, right? And so he was in there almost as a rotational type of player. But towards the end of the year, he really took the most of his opportunities, and you could really see that he has a great connection with Allen as well. And you really saw it in that Kansas City Chief game in the divisional playoff. What do you have? How many touchdowns do you have? 3, 4?
4.
4
touchdowns, over 200 yards. I'm going to bring up this comment over here because I do want to talk to this. I get it. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Carr. Not going to debate that. However, Carr had over 4,000, almost 5,000. I think he was over 5,000 yards passing last year and had what? He didn't have a Devonte Adams. I guarantee you Adams is going to get those targets. He's going to get those receptions. He's going to get those yards. And Carr is going to be able to support a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football.
All right. So I really, really, I love Devonte Adams. I actually think that on this list, if you were going to talk about best receivers in the game, he's probably right up there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably, I know Cooper Kupp he won the Triple Crown and stuff, but I'm talking like Cooper Kupp wins a lot in the slot. You're not going to put him on the outside. You're not putting him on the outside. Right. You're putting him against linebackers, safeties, that nickel guy, and you're going to scheme him certain ways. And that's not to make light of Cooper Kupp. He's an amazing player. It's just who he is. Devonte Adams is a number 1 true wide receiver in the NFL. He's a big target. He's a great route runner. And they throw him the ball when everybody in the stadium and on TV knows he's getting the ball, and he still comes down with it.
Yeah, my thing about the number 1.
Yeah.
Like my thing about as far as the game goes.
Absolutely. For sure. My thing about him being on this list is a lot of the things that you actually mentioned. he was the guy in Green Bay. He was the guy. I mean, next up you had Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Their tight end, who is Robert Tonyan, who I really like, got hurt midway through the year. He had a ton of targets out of necessity because he was the guy. If he was out, big problems. And I think they're going to have big problems in Green Bay with him being gone, because that was Rodgers' safety blanket, so to speak. That was just his guy that he knew he could go to at any given moment if he needed to play. Now that ball is going to be spread around, and I like the situation that he's in. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when it comes down to red zone, right, in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers would opt out of a clear running play to try to throw the ball to Devonte Adams. Now he's going to have to compete with Josh Jacobs because he's going to get some goal line carries. You're going to have Darren Waller, who's going to get some goal line targets, and Hunter Renfrow, they scheme open because he is able to just gain separation on and just cut on a dime. And then you have Devonte Adams as well. So you have all that, which is a great problem to have for the Las Vegas Raiders. But from a fantasy perspective, I mean, let's say, how many touchdowns did he have last year? I think that you might see a decrease potentially in touchdowns. And like you said, maybe a decrease in targets. To me, that decreases his value fantasy-wise. Now, with Debo Samuel, because this is a guy that I would actually have up there because of his versatility. His production last year, he had 1,400 yards receiving. He had 121 targets, 77 receptions, 6 touchdowns receiving. Okay, you can make an argument right there that he going forward, and 10 quarters with Trey Lance, he had 3 of those receiving touchdowns in 10 quarters with Trey Lance. But then you also incorporate what he's able to do on the ground, which we'll see that a lot of that was out of necessity, especially towards the end of the year. Elijah Mitchell was hurt, and they had nobody else to turn to because for some reason, Raheem Mostert was supposed to be the guy, and he lasted a total of 3 carries and was out the rest of the year. So that's kind of why we started to see him, but everybody knows what Debo Samuel can do. And on the ground, he had 59 rushes for 365 yards and 8 touchdowns. He also threw a touchdown. So with his sort of versatility and knowing what you can get as fantasy-wise, I mean, it's not just catching the ball. You're going to. It's kind of the argument that we make with quarterbacks that are able to move the ball with their legs. Like right. Lamar Jackson is a really great option at fantasy-wise. I wouldn't try to build a team around him, but I know I'm going to get some passing yards from him. I know I'm going to get some passing touchdowns, and I know I'm going to get some rushing yards, and I'm going to get some rushing touchdowns. That thought kind of goes into my mind when I'm talking about Debo Samuel and what he's able to do in several different facets of the game. Fantasy-wise, is like the only guy on the 49ers that I'd be like, I might want to take him because they've spread the ball around so much. But Debo Samuel last year and what he was able to do, I think that kind of puts him up there. But this is a hell of a list. I mean, you're going to take off Devonte Adams to put Debo Samuel up there? That's tough. And knowing what Jamar Chase is entering in his now second year with Joe Burrow, who he's been thrown to and catching balls from for a long time there at LSU. And then you got Justin Jefferson, who has just blown the doors off of this league in his going into his 3rd year, I believe. And you got Stephon Diggs with Josh Allen. It's hard to take anybody off of this list, but that's my only argument is for Debo Samuel because of his versatility to be able to creep up in here. But it's hard to take any one of those guys off too.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to address Greg's comment over here. I'll just bring it up on the screen. This is kind of cool. This is the first.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. Greg says got offered a 2024 first and Randall Cobb for Kadarius Toney. Personally, I keep Toney. That's me. I'm big on Toney. I actually tried to grab him in a couple of leagues last year. Didn't work out. Couldn't get him. So if you've already got him, I would hold on to him. What do you think?
And I think so too. And in a dynasty, right? A first rounder, what's that going to be? Yeah. Right. So what's that going to be? Because I know the 2023 class is actually a really, really strong class. And we were going to have a really good conversation about receivers and where the game's going, right? So Kadarius Toney, I think he actually is going to be trending up this next year because I think he's going to be a big part of their offense almost out of necessity. So I would hold on to them. He's a young guy. He's a big playmaker.
Yeah.
If they truly had him on the block, which I don't believe, by the way, you don't get rid of a guy like that if you're trying to build a team. And we're talking fantasy wise here. I think you keep that guy. I think you keep him around. You don't know what you're going to get for a first, and most likely, if you, it is tough, but that's going to be a guy in 2 years. You know what you got right now for the next 2 years. So I would keep Kadarius Toney and 14-person super flex. I'm not putting Randall Cobb for Kadarius Toney and then a guy 2 years later. I'm not doing that.
Definitely not. So I wanted to, on the Debo Samuel thing, I just don't see him getting 8 rushing touchdowns again. I don't see him getting 59 carries, mainly because, again, like you said, he got those carries out of necessity because of injuries to the backfield. Now you've got a quarterback that can run around too. I just don't think that he's going to be getting those carries like he was before. Now, it could be offset with an uptick in receptions, though.
That's my thought. That's really what my thought is.
Yeah, with Trey Lance running around, buying some time, that could be, an ideal situation for Debo to get some additional targets and receptions as well. He could absolutely make this top 5. And I actually have him at number 6. I don't know if I mentioned that to you or not, but he is my number 6. You didn't mention
that. You definitely did not mention that to me.
So, yeah, he is right there. He's right there.
When it comes to this, this time of the year, and really kind of coming from this conversation and what I wanted to talk about was just think about where this game is going now. When we talk about fantasy football and we talk about, strategies and the way that you want to go about it, most of the time it's you got to take a running back. And it used to be because they were your workhorses. Now it's that you have to take them because there's not a whole lot of them out there that are going to be getting a ton of touches. That, some of them are sharing time, but it's really progressed into the receiver game. And we just had that list that was up there for, the top 5 guys. But you think about where this game's going now. This draft that we just had 6 receivers go in the first round. That's crazy. And these young guys, they're producing. You see Jamar Chase, they're producing early in the league. It's not like it was where they're having to learn how to be a pro and all that stuff. There's some of that. But these kids are playing 7-on-7 in the off season, running routes with their quarterbacks, going against defenders. They get into the season, and the offenses are designed in the passing game. They're not designed with 8 guys in the box. We're going to cram the ball down your throat anymore. Yeah. They're spreading you out with 4 receivers, read option with a bubble screen to get those guys into space. So we've seen the game progress into college, and I think we're starting to now see it bleed into the NFL a little bit more, where you're starting to see guys be more polished in their route running. You're starting to see guys be able to do and make a lot of plays with the ball in their hands. And these guys are fast. We don't have the 6'4", 225 guys that we used to covet at the wide receiver position in the NFL. If you see a lot of these guys in this draft, there's only like 1 or 2 of those guys that were like that. Everyone else was 6 foot, 190, 4.3 speed, so it's crazy to see where the game is going. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts as you look at that, you're making your fantasy football list and stuff. Does that change the way that you kind of start to go about things? And it looks to be the way that the GMs in the NFL are starting to go more towards those younger guys. We saw it with AJ Brown. They traded him before they paid him, and they picked up a younger guy is what they did. The Tennessee Titans. That's a young receiver that I don't think we saw that 3 years ago.
Right. I agree. Yeah. It's interesting to watch, to see the dynamics happen. And I've said all along that there's not too many Jamar Chases or Justin Jeffersons in this league. If we have another rookie do that again for the 3rd year in a row, okay, I won't say that anymore. Because to your point, they are coming up through the ranks more polished. The college is a passing game. So those guys are more involved in the offenses. They're running more routes. They're, doing all of those things. And it is starting to translate into this game. What I'm going to find interesting over the next few years is how teams handle that. Like you were saying, we saw Tennessee trade away a guy they didn't want to pay for, and they bring in a young guy. which teams are going to go the opposite and be like, okay, well, we'll pay this great guy, and then we'll
Right.
just fill in around him. It kind of got me thinking, even with Buffalo's situation. Diggs just signed a new contract or new extension. I believe he's in Buffalo for the next 4 years, maybe 5. I don't think he's in Buffalo. Honestly, I don't think he finishes the contract. And I hate to say that because I want him to. I
Yeah.
want him to retire Bill. I don't think it's going to happen, though, especially if Davis hits it out of the park, the next year or two and shows that he can be at number one. Then you've got a guy, okay, well, let's move this guy on up the ladder. He's our new number one. We're going to pay him, give him an extension before we have to give him this $30 million Tyreek Hill type contract.
Yeah. And
then
God forbid you throw an
Dolphins.
injury in there, which could happen, right?
Yeah.
Which even decreases his value even more. Like, he's still fairly young. He's under 30, isn't he, Stephon Diggs?
I believe he's 30 or 31.
Just barely.
Yeah.
Barely, right? I mean, he's been around this league for a while. I mean, he had Case Keenum throwing in the ball. Obviously, the miracle in Minneapolis, miracle there. But to your point, I think we're going to start seeing a strategy in the NFL where if that young guy for Tennessee blows the doors off, you're really going to have GMs around the league go, why in the world are we going to pay a guy $27 million when we can get a guy in the draft and pay him $7 to $8 million? We'll have him for 4 years. If we give him the first round, we got that 5th-year option. We got him for essentially his rise and prime. Yeah. So that makes it really kind of tough. And then, not to mention, you talk about saturating the market too. If we have 6 guys go in the first round and 4 of those guys have 1,000-yard receiving seasons, which could possibly happen, you have an extra game. You have the game is more towards, you can't, there's no illegal contact after 5 yards. That's a foul, pass interference. And you got these corners that are on islands and they just can't do what they need to do to stop some of these guys, especially when they're 4-3. Yeah. So I think if you have 4 of those guys that have 1,000-yard receiving years this year, which, like I said, could happen, it's going to be crazy, because then you think about all the receivers that are out there and all these quarterbacks that are throwing them the ball. It's an aerial attack in the NFL. And you want to know what? That's what the NFL wants. They want
It's absolutely what they want.
That's what they want.
I think it's going to, if this happens too, if these guys come out and they kill it year 1, year 2 and 3 and so on, I think you're going to see a shift in the market as far as the contracts.
Yeah.
Teams will be like, I don't need to pay this one guy $25 million when I can sign these 2 guys who maybe they're not superstars, but they're pretty damn good. And I can get them both for $20 million combined. And I got to correct myself. Diggs is 28. So I do think he finishes his contract. I don't think they extend him, because at that point he'd be 33.
Still young. I mean, you think 28 years old, he's been in the league for a while. He's a wily veteran that's probably in the prime of his career. 28 years old.
Right now.
Right now he's in the prime of his career with, I want to say arguably, but I don't think that there's too much of an argument right now going into 2022 of, I feel like he's probably in one of the best situations with Josh Allen. He's been there. This is his 3rd year in Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
I believe going into his 3rd year. I mean, Josh Allen is peaking right now. He hasn't hit it yet, but he's on his way, and he's in a great situation. So when you look at these receivers, and it's nuts. We talk about the AFC and all these quarterbacks and all these guys that they have to throw to, and the way that these teams are trying to stop them is by pass rushers. It's not by DBs. It's not. They're going out and getting 2 pass rushers to try to sack the quarterback to stop him from getting the ball down the field, because it's hard as a DB. And I'm wondering when we're starting to see that change of now defensive backs. We need defensive backs. You're going to see really good corners in the league.
And that's what I think is going to happen, is you're going to see that money start to shift from the wide receivers to the corners, because there's not that many like true shutdown corners right now.
No. Well, how could they? They can't grab. They can't they can't even touch these guys. So
the days of Deion Sanders, Darrelle Revis, Night Train Lane, those are done. That's a thing of the past. It's funny. I was watching a game. It was from 1988. Yeah, it was 88 because I went back and I watched that first Bills Jets game, the one I watched and became a Bills fan off of. I was watching that game, and the defensive back, he grabbed the wide receiver, right? And Dan
Which was
Dierdorf,
legal back then.
right? Dan Dierdorf said, "Oh, that wouldn't have happened last year because it's a penalty, but they changed the rules this year so corners can get up in their face and kind of get handsy with them." And I'm thinking, wow, so it went from one way to the other, and now we're back to the other way. And I just thought that was really interesting to hear.
Well, and I remember the days even when I was playing, if a receiver was running a crossing route, you would take his head off.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if the ball was coming his way or not. Like he was in your way. But now you can't even do that because that's some sort of pass interference.
Don't look at him funny.
Yeah, don't look at him weird. But I mean, even kind of going back to that Tua play, and I know we got to get out of here, but underthrowing a ball sometimes is one of the best things that an offensive guy can do because you're going to get a flag. That defender has no idea where the ball is. He's trying to locate it. Now all of a sudden the receiver is crossing his face, and your natural reaction is to go, no. Flag, right? So it makes it tough. But Ronnie, I'm so excited that we are I feel like we're I don't know if we've hit the downhill quite yet because we got to get through this month and probably midway through June. And then I feel like we're on the downhill because then we got training camps coming around the corner. And the next thing you know, we're going to have, preseason games. But we get the schedule released tomorrow. We're going to talk about that next week. We're going to start changing our gears to how these teams are all set up and how they're built and what we think their outlook is going to be going into 2022. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to see who gets that Thursday night season opener because you and I are in disagreement on that one. But we can talk about that next week.
We'll talk. Yeah. So my prediction is I think it's going to be NFC versus NFC. I don't think it's NFC AFC. I think if I would not be surprised if it was Rams Niners. I wouldn't be shocked because that was the NFC Championship game, and they've kind of done some things like that with New England and Kansas City. Like if it would have been Kansas City, I would have said it's got to be Bills, Bills in Kansas City. But since it's the Rams, I don't know. You could say the Cowboys potentially to kind of get ratings. I don't know. It's going to be different, but I wouldn't be shocked at Rams Niners at all.
Yeah, we've actually only in the last decade only twice as division rivals opened the season like that. We have had twice where it was AFC, NFC. And for me, obviously, I would love to see Buffalo open the season, and we know it's going to be the Rams because that's just how they do it now. But when they signed Von Miller, I just felt like, okay, well, that's the nail in the coffin right there. They got to play Bills Rams on Thursday night.
Do the Bills have the Rams on the schedule next year?
Yeah,
as an opponent, they do. That's potentially. You want to know? I'm going to call my shot right now because I know the NFC West plays the AFC West. I think it's going to be Rams Chiefs, game 1.
That's a possibility too.
I'm going to call my shot. Stamp on it. It's going to be Rams Chiefs.
I'm sticking with Rams.
Talk about it next week. Yeah, I love it. Of course you would. All right, man. Well, we'll get out of here. Ronnie, it's always a pleasure, man. Make sure that you give us a follow, give us a rating. We always love that. And make sure that you hit that subscribe button at the top. But until next Wednesday, we talk about the schedule release. Ronnie, we're out. Hope you guys have a great weekend.
Good night, everyone.